Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over another unique item, and this is the other unique. It's called Indira's Memory. Indira's Memory is an interesting one that has to do with bone prison, bone spear, and a bunch of other things. I ended up choosing Kesame's. I thought Kesame's was more fun to use, but it could potentially be an interesting option as well. You would have to build specifically into it, though. It's not like you can just slap them on and make it work. Let's talk about the item first, then we'll go into the specifics of it. And, before we do that, because I always forget, let's talk about where you get this particular item. If I remember correctly, I got this one from Beast in the Ice. That was where I found mine. So if you're trying to farm this specifically, you're going to want to go to Beast in the Ice, which is right here, just south of Kyovashad. And you're going to need a special boss material called Distilled Fear. Which you can see drops from Nightmare Dungeons, cash rewards from the Tree of Whisper, which you're going to be doing tons of Tree of Whispers this season, Elite Monsters, World Bosses, Undercity of Kurast, and bartering at the Mercenary Den. So, let's talk about the item. Casting Bone Spear reduces Bloodwave's cooldown by 2 seconds, so that's interesting. Gives a little bit of a synergy there for casting Bone Spear. 115% overpower damage, which is good because Bloodwave and most blood skills are overpower skills. 45% damage reduction while injured. Now that, of course, is probably more like 30% damage reduction while injured, but since it's a greater affix, it's even better. 7.5% maximum life, which is really nice. That's a greater affix. That's probably also something more like 25 or something. And then we have Tides of Blood +3. Tides of Blood is a really nice passive skill for the Necromancer. It's right here. It's your blood skills deal up to mine is at 30% times, but it should be 15% times normally. I think it's 5% times per point. Increased overpower damage, and this bonus is doubled while you are healthy. So you can get, right now I'm getting 60 times multiplier for this particular passive. So very powerful when you're doing blood skills. On top of this, we also have the actual passive unique effect, right? So what is the unique effect to? It's a lot. So first off, Bloodwave is additionally now a bone skill. Which is very powerful on its own. And let's just stop right there because this is something that we have to talk about. So, Bloodwave being a bone skill means that you can scale it utilizing things like Evulsion, Rapid Ossification, Serration, Compound Fracture, and it's going to do a lot of damage from these. You're going to get things like increased bone skill damage. After you critically strike, you're going to get the ability to increase your damage versus vulnerable enemies. You're also going to get the ability to grab the increased critical strike chance and also the cooldown reduction. So whenever you spend essence, you get to get cooldown reduction for your Bloodwave ability, which is a whole other thing. So having it as a bone skill means you're going to be able to scale it with all the bone multipliers and even the Paragon board multipliers like Bone Graft, which is going to be pretty powerful for a character who's doing this. So that's like the first main thing that it's giving you for Bloodwave is now a bone skill, and Bloodwave is going to do large amounts of damage because of it. You get a lot of scaling multipliers with Bloodwave being a bone skill as well as a blood skill. Now it also spawns a bone prison at its endpoint and increases your blood skill damage by up to 80% for 8 seconds when cast. So to see this, normally when you cast Bloodwave, it looks like this. All right. However, if you use Indira's Memory, your Bloodwave looks like this. And you get a bone prison at the end of it. Now, an interesting side effect of this, and something that I had actually kind of considered, is that because when you use this aspect, the title aspect, which gives you the additional blood waves, you are also going to get additional bone prisons, right? So 1, 2, 3, right? Well, there is an aspect that allows you to have, like, explosions coming from your bone prisons, which counts as bone damage, by the way. And you could potentially have the bone prison exploding up to 2 times, obviously not the 3rd time, at the end point, because when you recast bone prison, it automatically explodes the previous segments, which means you could potentially get additional damage that way. There's also a potential synergy with Bone Spirit here, because, of course, there are a lot of aspects with Bone Spirit that allow you to get additional damage if the monster is inside of a bone prison. So it gives you an additional way to cast your bone prison and then also cast bone spirits. So there's a very fun option here where you could potentially be casting lots of bone prisons and bone spirits, maybe even a blood lance build. I know that this has bone spear on it, but potentially if you're spamming blood waves and the blood waves are spamming bone prisons and you're also spamming the blood lances, you could potentially be using the blood orbs to cast bone spirits through the unique item known as Blood Artisan's Curios, which is a whole build that has already existed for quite a few seasons. And essentially what this would do is it would make it so that your bone prison's already there. And you would just build into the bone prison, bone spirit stuff alongside of the blood lance and blood artisan curios stuff. And then your blood wave would be doing massive amounts of damage also as a result. So another interesting way that you could potentially push this. The other effect of this is Bone Spear is additionally a blood skill. So again, stop here for a second because this is pretty massive. Now that means that your Bone Spear is going to be benefiting from things like coalesced blood, tides of blood, gruesome mending, transfusion, drained vitality. You're also going to be getting any other blood bonuses like on the Paragon board. Like potentially you're going to get things like blood begets blood, which is the blood orbs. You're also going to be able to grab the bloodbath ability, which is for your blood skill damage. And basically all of your scaling multipliers for blood damage are now going to apply to your Bone Spear, which is a whole nother way that you can potentially push it. Now, there is a negative to this, however. It drains 10% maximum life each cast after hitting an enemy to consume a surrounding corpse and launch a new Bone Spear from it. So it does actually burn HP every single time you cast it, which is unfortunate. It's 10%, exactly 10%. So it doesn't matter how much HP you have, it's always 10%. If you got 30,000 HP, it's 10%. If you got 1 HP, it's still 10%, probably kills you. But basically how this works is it's just going to consume your HP. Now, what I didn't like is it also consumes your essence as well, which is kind of poopy. If they're going to make an ability consume your HP, why is it also consuming your essence at the same time? I feel like they should have just nixed the essence requirement entirely. But, I mean, there is a little something to that because at least then you're activating rapid ossification, which is a whole other thing. The casting after hitting an enemy to consume a surrounding corpse is interesting because, of course, you got tons of blood waves all over the place. And I don't actually have Bone Spear on my character, but I think I am wearing a Shaco, so I could just shove it in here for a minute. And as you can see, I have 29,000 health, and every time I cast it, I'm losing a massive amount of health in the process, and also a massive amount of essence. However, the corpses, which I know you can't really see very well, but there is an additional Bone Spear that's being consumed. Ooh. It's consuming one of the corpses, and it's actually making them. I can actually make a corpse here. Hold on. Let me change out my golem to the one that makes corpses so I can show you this better. It'll just take a couple seconds, and then we can cast the golem over here so you can see the extra Bone Spear. Okay. So we're going to cast him here. He's going to make the corpses. There we go. And you see the extra little red Bone Spears coming from the pile over here that I created. So we were ending up with a bunch of extra little Bone Spears, and they were shooting out from my pile. That's basically what you're doing. So you're just getting a bunch of extra Bone Spears firing off. Now, you do need to be able to maintain your life with this. So having ways to counter that 10% loss is definitely going to be important. There are ways to do it as a blood character. There's tons of healing that you can do. You can collect orbs. I mean, the goal of this is not just to spam Bone Spear. It's also to spam your blood wave. And your blood wave does spawn orbs, so technically if you fire off your abilities and then run around collecting your orbs, you can also use the orbs to restore essence as well, which is a whole nother thing. So you can get things like on rings that give you blood orbs restore 7 essence, or you can grab aspects that were blood orbs give you essence back. So the entire process of this particular unique item is essentially to force you into obviously collecting your blood orbs, keeping yourself healed, and keeping your essence up at the same time while also firing off bone spears and blood waves constantly. You don't want to be firing off only bone spears, and you don't want to be firing off only blood waves. You want to fire off both in concert with each other so that you can constantly collect the orbs. I think that this pair of pants could actually work really well ignoring the second part entirely, which is kind of funny. You could totally build like a Blood Wave Bone Spirit character. Now, granted, you wouldn't get the blood multipliers on your Bone Spirit, but honestly, that hardly matters. You should still be able to scale your blood wave with all the bone modifiers and get massive amounts of blood wave damage. And then at the same time, basically just scale your bone spirit by itself and dish out massive amounts of damage that way. And since the blood wave is now putting a bone prison at the end, you don't no longer have to cast bone prison. So you're getting a free bone prison every time. And then I don't even think you would actually run bone spirit. You would just run like blood lance, because blood lance gives you the ability to spawn an infinite number of bone spirits. The other interesting synergy here is that if you did cast Bone Spirit would feed into Rapid Ossification, which is the one that allows you to reset cooldowns. So every time you spend all your essence, you would reset cooldowns of your Blood Wave, which would then allow you, because your Blood Wave is now Bone Skill. So your Blood Wave becomes a Bone Skill, which means you can now reset it. With Rapid Ossification. And you can get more Rapid Ossification on your rings if you want to. Like, I think it's like 333. So you can get like 9 bonus points on Rapid Ossification. You can also stack that with the 3 original points in Rapid Ossification, giving you like 0.5 per point. So that's what? 1.5 for 3, 3 for 6, 4.5 for 9, 6 for 12. So yeah, you're talking about like 6-second cooldown reduction for every 100 essence that you spend, and as a Bone Spirit character, you can very easily stack that to the moon, getting yourself a lot more. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to this particular unique item. It's an interesting unique item, definitely one that you can make some very fun characters around. I think I still prefer Hogwarts Legacy, which I have that video up as well, so be sure to check that out. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's read the flavor text. So, the tears of Linarian turned bloody over Indira's torn body. Many days unyielding, he poured his magic into sundered bone and rended sinew. Though the flesh did mend, his beloved did not rise. That's sad. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.